in the Protestant Ethics and the Spirit of Capitalism, Max Weber makes another point to the end of showing how the zeitgeist changed after the Reformation. And he does that by pointing to a specific work that John Milton made after the Reformation. He had Reformed Christian ancestry. The work is called Paradise Lost. It's a very long epic poem. And it describes the expulsion of man from paradise. And the expulsion of man from paradise is usually taken to mean that man was curious, that man didn't obey the rules, that man thought he was something better, and as a consequence of that got punished for life here on earth. Life here on earth is really just miserable. Life here on earth is just punishment by God. And the only thing you can achieve is to hope that you can go to paradise again after you die. So this life here on earth is just the punishment. That's the usual narrative. There's an interesting movie called Pleasantville, a Hollywood movie in which two teenagers are sucked into a television series which portrays in black and white what is believed to be the American of the 50s. And it is portrayed as a very boring society in which people blindly obey the rules that have been handed down to them by their parents. And those two teenagers start a little rebellion. They influence their fellow students in a bad way, in such a way that they do parties, they start smoking, they start questioning those silly traditions that have no meaning. And as they do that, the movie gets more and more colorful. It's no longer black-white. People get colorful. Those people who question those rules, those mindless rules, get colorful. And in the end of the movie, God shows up in the disguise of an old man, and that old man scolds the two teenagers for having spoiled paradise, and then casts them out of paradise, and they're in the future again. So obviously this is something you would sympathize with, because blind obedience to old traditions, which is demanded by God in paradise, in exchange for security and predictability, is not something worth taking. It's a bad deal. And if that is what paradise is, then it is a good thing that people were cast out of paradise. And this is the fundamental premise of this movie. And as far as it goes, it's correct. But it goes a little bit farther, of course, because it also paints the narrative that it was liberals who made this progression, and that the people who blindly obey rules are conservatives, and particularly Christians. And it's plausible, because Christians believe in the story, at least formally. They believe in the story that paradise is actually a good thing. So the narrative here is that liberals tell Christians, here, this is what you believe in. You believe that blind obedience to old tradition is a good thing, and it is a sin to eat from the tree of knowledge. Yeah, you are anti-knowledge. And we liberals do that. We eat from the tree of knowledge, and we were cast out of paradise, and that's a good thing. So, and now, that's not a new idea. Now we come to Paradise Lost from John Milton, because John Milton paints exactly the same narrative that Pleasantville does. Perhaps not quite exactly the same narrative in the sense that he actually anti-Christian or anti-God. He is a Christian. He has Reformed parents, and he has written this influential work, Paradise Lost, which has a different narrative. And what I'm going to read here is a very small excerpt at the very end, in the 12th chapter of Paradise Lost, line number 580. The example is, of course, from Max Weber, from this study, Protestant Ethics and the Spirit of Capitalism. And in this very small snippet, you see that the narrative is completely different from the original story. This is an angel talking to Adam as he leaves paradise. And he says, "And all the riches of this world enjoyest." Yeah, not the riches of paradise, the riches of this world in which he is cast out into. That is what he is supposed to enjoy. And this is not meant ironically. This is positive talking. and all the rule one empire, only at deeds to thy knowledge answerable. That's the fruit of knowledge here, in a positive light. To thy knowledge answerable, at faith, at virtue, patience, temperance, at love, by name to come called charity. That is probably the only thing that an objectivist would object to, that charity is equated with love, but I just skim over this, not important. The soul of all the rest, then thou wilt not be loath to leave this paradise, but shalt possess a paradise within thee happier far. So, what the angel says to Adam is, you leave this paradise, you enjoy this world, and if you have virtues, if you are answerable to your knowledge only, and you add patience and temperance, then you will not loath to have left this paradise. You will have one within thee happier far than the paradise you just left. It means that paradise lost isn't a bad thing. It means that paradise lost is the first step towards an infinite adventure. And that is a Christian, and that is a very influential Christian work. It's a reformed Christian work.